Greetings, everyone. It is I, Pathinder, your Golden Emperor here at the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. We continue Spooktober. Now, again, it's Pathfinder topic today, so they tend to be a little less spooky, a little less dark. But not necessarily. They kind of fit in that area of, I try to take things that were a little bit more unusual, a little more alien, a little bit more, just fit into that Spooktober kind of topic line. And today's no different than that. I found an ancestry, another one that I can talk about that has a little bit of negative connotations about them, a little bit of spookiness. So that's what we're going to talk about today and dive into it. And maybe we just dive right into it and we can chat about it and go over all the stuff. But we're talking about the Goloma. Have you played a Goloma? They are a rare species. One of the very few ones, or ancestors, I should say. So it's a very unusual one to play, but not necessarily one you couldn't play. And the Malongi Expanse book is what introduces them. So that's really where you have to go into it. We didn't have anything on them in first edition, so they are a very much so second edition book. But again, expanding on a region that we didn't have as much on in first edition. Fantasy second edition a lot more, but we've got some more expansions in the areas and more introductions to things like that. So, very good on Paizo. But let's take a look at what they look like. Hey, that one's a little bigger. And we can do a little bigger. That's a Goloma. They're peculiar many-eyed humanoids that are native to the Malongi Expanse. From the Malongi Expanse book, it's kind of obvious with that one. They've got a strong psychological disposition towards fear and paranoia. And this is where I decided to talk about them for. This physiology and a penchant for adopting intimidating personas to protect themselves puts them at odds with a lot of other people, who are often unnerved or disconcerted by their presence. The number of eyes they produce, possess, which are 8 that protrude out of a mask-like faceplate, or the kind of thousands that peer from the mane growing on their backs of their heads, has given them a distinct talent for observation and visual calculations. They are natural to the jungles and mountains of the Expanse. So they are comparably sized and it's. I agree with you, Worm. That's the point of them. They've got a very unusual, very alien, very monstrous appearance. But comparably, they're about the same size as a human, and anatomically, they really are also very much so standard humanoid. They don't really have an alien biology, just appearance more than anything. They're digigrade and possess rough skin that can be colored from warm brown to ebony, gray to white for the sickly or those with albinism. They have a layer of chitin that covers their fingers and feet. Their heads and mouth are equine in shape, so they're a little horse-like with their heads and mouth, actually. It's the mask and a lot of eyes, which kind of hide the fact that they have basically a horse head, a horse-like head, and their faces characterized by an oblong wedge made of smooth chitin that looks similar to a wooden mask. So it's not actually a mask; it's actually a chitinous layer over top of them. A set of 8 shining gelatinous eyes run the length of the mask, arranged lengthwise 4 to a side. A mane of black hair grows on the nape of the back of their head and is filled with thousands of minuscule eyes that writhe and gleam and look around. That is very weird looking. That they have tiny eyes on their necks and then the 4 eyes on their faces. So they do strive from a society that tends to be self-sufficient and tries their best to maintain their seclusion. They're very, again, physiologically, when you break it down, they're very similar to your average other species on Golarion, but just looking at them, they are very alien and different. So they try to keep secluded. But they have a background in hunting, laboring, farming, creating art. There are those that venture from their home but there often are scouts or acolytes for their community. Their unique mindset does set them apart from different humanoids. So sometimes they do worship other deities that are not normally worshipped by a lot of other humanoids. And they're very perceptive and hypervigilant. Alright. So let's move on and talk about the fact that here's another picture, and you can see the little eyes there. That's a very good one for the eyes. So, outside the Mwangi Expanse, it is incredibly rare to see a Goloma. They've got elusive nature that does prevent them from gaining a better understanding of their particular biology, if someone would try to study them. They see themselves as prey. And they considered those with two eyes to be natural predators of their kind. So that's an interesting kind of fact, is they look at themselves as prey. And any being with two eyes, predators. The innumerable eyes they have, the mass amount of them, are capable of possessing a large amount of visual information at an alarming speed. So all those eyes do give them a lot of information. But it does come at a cost. Specific visual details tend to be a little more difficult, and sometimes in the heat of things going on, it could make it difficult for them to distinguish friend from foe. It's sort of like, it has a massive amount of visual information, it processes it quickly, but the details can be lost because it can see so much. It sort of like has a very big picture kind of view. So they have a psychology that's based on reactive instinct. It hones their society's values and a little bit of paranoia that they almost have too. Some are capable of developing the chitnuts on their hands a little further and can form claws for self-defense. So those chitnuts growth on their hands, feet, face, again, some of them can kind of almost grow claws. When it comes to the Mwangi Expanse, they're in these enclaves, the Goloma enclaves. And they take advantage of the noisy, low-light environments within the jungle to conceal their presence. Basically, it's not a lot of light, it's loud, they can kind of hide very easily. Some are in mountains and hills, again, using the natural territory to basically help hide them. That's why they kind of find these areas. Most are found in the Screaming Jungles, which is close proximity to the citizens of Osabu. Just to add in, Osabu is the Golden City within the Mwangi Expanse. Just as a note, that might be one to talk about in the future. But there are people living there. So there are humans that are in close proximity there. There are some Goloma, which can be still found within the Mwangi Expanse, or within, I should say, Garund, but outside. And well, technically it's within the Mwangi Expanse because some journey to Magabya University in Nantambu to basically have a magical education if they want to learn about things, something like a wizard or arcanist. And it is a city-state in western Mwangi Expanse. And it's got one of the oldest, if not the oldest, arcane school in Golarion, which I just mentioned, Magabya University. So you can find Goloma there, if you're looking for one that's outside of their basic society. Several groups of them have been believed to migrate farther south to southern Garund, and some have even thought to be ventured to other continents in small groups. Mwangi Golomas have no substantiate connections to these relatives, losing track of them long ago. So if you really wanted to have a Breaking it back to the actual game and characters and stuff, you want to have a Goloma character in somewhere other than Wongi, you could very easily use the fact that some of them migrated long ago to have, I've got a small group living on the outskirts of this territory that's, very hard to reach. And I happen to travel in there and appear in a society. Still very rare, but, you could use that as a storyline while you're playing way outside Wongi, because some have left. Their religious practices do center around Kellicott, a deity who exemplifies vigilance as a mean of protection. The deity of deadly secrets and dangerous places. An executioner of the guilty, guardian of the lost, basically. They see Kellicott as a divine guardian for their people, but they don't really trust him necessarily. I'm going to butcher these here. Mazlude and Grandmother Spider are also venerated by them, who are drawn to the virtues of the communities they represent. They don't share their true name outside of their own kind, and there are several traditional tales that warn against revealing such information. They just struggle to pronounce soft syllables, and often feature hard consonants and individual vowel pronunciations in their name and language. They will often adopt another name when interacting with other communities, using sounds or words that are tended to be intimidating or cause strong reactions in language they borrow names from. So they do kind of oftentimes have another name that they'll adopt when they're outside of their society, whether, magical school or whatever. And again, I guess I can't really give a good example, but the idea of intimidating strong reactions would be like, Deathblood. I don't think that's a good name, but, things like that. It gives a good example of that mindset that's being placed forward. But that's all we really have on Goloma right now. It's a short one today. And they're a very interesting one, because, again, they have these interesting abilities and stuff like that makes them very unique. And I think this is a case where I kind of have to almost take a look and talk a little bit about their stats a little bit as mechanics. Because they don't really have any abilities other than their extra eyes and their interesting society and the ways that they do things. But they do look unusual, and they have a paranoia to them, and they have this disposition to mistrust non-Goloma or non-multi-eyed creatures, two-eyed creatures in particular. It's sort of like if you're playing a Goloma or existing as a Goloma in the game, whether NPC or otherwise, you are most likely interacting with beings that you see as predators. It's sort of like walking among sharks, not knowing when they're going to strike against you. That's gotta put you on so heavy an edge. Why they themselves are kind of very unusual and almost monstrous in a way to the people that would be around them. The mass amount of eyes, the strange, body, the face cover, it just screams something unusual and alien to a lot of your average humanoids on Golarion. So these two combinations of factors creates a distrust and fear between the two sides. Because each of them, for various regions, don't like each other almost. But they are very interesting creatures, and adds a lot to the layers of what is something on Golarion. They try to keep people at arm's length. They understand that as they believe them, they don't say what actually preys on them. I assume it's the Mongi Expanse. It's a jungle filled with a lot of creatures and deadly things, dinosaurs, etc., etc. Take your pick at something that will actually eat them too. but I feel like it's sort of like, because they are one of the very few, well, I can't say very few multi-eye, but they certainly have the most eyes out of a lot of creatures out there, because they have the all probably, like, you know, they have the main eyes in the front and probably like a mane full of lesser eyes. You know, it's interesting to kind of think the fact that they see things with two eyes differently. So they try to take advantage. They're not stupid enough to understand that these creatures that they see as dangerous and almost something that could hurt them also fear them because of their appearance. And they're not stupid enough not to take advantage of it. That's why they take on these names, which are, as I said, harsh, intimidating, strong, or strong reactions. You know, that's the idea, is like, you know, keep away from me, I'm spooky, grr, don't bother with me, you know, I want you to also be afraid of me, even though I know, you know, you're more dangerous to me than I am to you. It's psychological mimicry rather than actual mimicry. It's like the insect trying to look like a bird or something, or mimicking something else. The insect trying to look like a snake. The caterpillar trying to look like a snake. It's trying to intimidate something else. It's not really a predator, but it's trying to pretend like it is one to scare people away. And they do that because, again, they have their own psychological fear, you know, that it's built into them, but they are smart enough to recognize they can take advantage of, you know, unnatural fears and other people a little bit. It's a very interesting juxtaposition between the two basic ideas in society. And again, they do their own job very well of existing in their small hunter-gatherer kind of places that have built kind of little societies, maybe Stone Age to Bronze Age societies that they kind of, like, they're not trying to have something major and long expense. They're just trying to survive and exist beyond their own. And yes, I think the ones that spread out to the world and went off in groups to Southern Garund and other places, these are the ones that are, well, a little bit more brave. These are the adventurer Goloma, in groups of them that went off. So it's not outside of possibility. A player character could be an adventurous Goloma who's traveling somewhere because they're just a little bit more brave, or a little bit more curiosity. Maybe curiosity gets them over those natural fears or something like that, and they want to kind of find out what's going on. Still vigilant, still calculating, but as much as they distrust the strangers with the two eyes and stuff like that, there's a wide world out there. One of them might be discovered, and maybe that's your character. So I think there's this interesting juxtaposition of emotions that's really the most important part of a Goloma, and its interesting appearance, rather than the physical or societal stuff. The physical and societal are very simple things, you know. There isn't a lot of, like, complexity in their society, you know. It's sort of like they just do their thing. They don't have any, like, major, other than, like, worshipping a couple of unique, you know, deities that are maybe not as popular or stuff like that sometimes. But anyway, I think that's enough for Goloma for today. I could dive in a little more further, but this kind of summarizes, builds together the basis. Anyway, so you enjoyed this. I do streaming tabletop stuff on Twitch, put it up on YouTube. If you're watching me live, hey, you could, if you played a Goloma character, if you're watching this on YouTube, the comment, you know, remember. Or if you've dealt with Golomas, either as a character or NPC. YouTube's also a great place to see it. Again, the live parts are every Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, usually early afternoon, Saturdays, late morning, and then they go up on YouTube usually a couple days afterwards, depending on the schedule, and depending sometimes if I record multiples of these on a day, I might push off some schedules. Great ways to support, liking the video, subscribing on YouTube, leaving a comment, ringing the bell if you're already a subscriber. If you're on Twitch, following there. I have social media, Discord, Twitter.com. Those are places to, see what's going on with me and schedules and stuff like that. And I think those are all the major shout-outs I have to remember. I do other stuff on Twitch, too. You go check it out. Live plays, discussing tabletop on Saturday evenings, which is a tabletop discussion show, and some video games and stuff, too. Especially for the spooky season, I've been doing a lot of, Resident Evil type stuff. So, spooky. I thought Goloma fit very well within the spooky season. Just because they have that, they do instill fear. Even though they're kind of fearful themselves. It's this interesting juxtaposition. Fear all around. Alright. I think that's it. I gave all my shoutouts. I gave all the information. I hope you learned. I hope you enjoyed and stayed to the end. And until the next time, we can chat about all this and dive more into Pathfinder. And bid all of you out there a deep